found it, would you rest to your feet for the public reading and hearing of God's word? Nehemiah chapter 2. I'll be reading the first 6 verses. And it reads, early the following spring, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. Then I was terrified, but I replied, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. The king asked, well, how can I help you? With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, if it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. The king, with the queen sitting by his side, asked, how long will you be gone? When will you return? After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. The word of the Lord is blessed. For just a moment, I want to use as a topic for your consideration, risky business. Risky business. Look at your neighbor and say, risky business. Risky business. There are things that we hear that touch our heart in deep and lasting ways. There are things that we see that move us to action. Foundations and causes are started that way. Feeding programs are started that way. After-school programs are started that way. Organizations to cure disease and sickness are started that way. The late college basketball Hall of Fame coach Jim Valvano started an organization called the V Foundation for cancer research. And after he succumbed to the disease himself, his friend and colleague, the colorful analyst, Dick Vitale, picked up the mantle on behalf of his friend and has since raised millions of dollars on behalf of cancer research. It has become one of the premier college sports events in all of the country. Serena and Venus Williams, in their mission to see girls of color exposed to the game of tennis, has produced the likes of Sloane Stevenson, Naomi Osaka, and that latest sensation, that 15-year-old little girl, Coco Gauff. Maybe, Essence, you haven't started an organization. Maybe, Sister Sophia, there's no label placed on your cause. But many of us in here have raised and taken in kids that weren't our own because we were committed to seeing them have a safe place to be raised. Many of us in here don't have a driving company, but we were committed to getting the kids in the neighborhood to their after-school activities. Many of us in here, maybe your house, like my house growing up, was that place where all of the kids came because they knew they were going to be safe. And they knew they can get fed. This is the case with Nehemiah. If you will allow me to give some backdrop to provide some pretext for our context, because I think it will enhance our conversation. Solomon had 2 sons, Jeroboam and Rehoboam. And under his sons' leadership, the nation of Israel split into 2. The northern kingdom kept the name Israel, and the southern kingdom took on the name Judah. And Nehemiah, during his lifetime, was a part of the southern kingdom of Judah. During Nehemiah's lifetime, Judah was under Persian occupation and Persian control. And at the time of our text this morning, Nehemiah is living in Susa, serving as a cupbearer to the king, 648 miles away from his home in Jerusalem. And he does something that could have cost him his life. I don't know if you know, but the cupbearer was responsible for sipping the king's drink before the king drank out of it in case the king would be poisoned. And so this was a very serious role to play in the royal court. And any display of emotions could be construed or misconstrued as instability and mistrust. And so when Nehemiah has a countenance that looks sad and body language that looks a little disconcerting, the king asked him, "What's up?" Nehemiah, understanding that his request could cost him his life, makes it anyway. And he says to the king, "May I have permission to go back to my city to rebuild the wall?" Nehemiah makes a request knowing that death could be knocking at his door if the response of the king is different. Can I just pause? Can I just give you what I discovered as I was reading this text? Can I give you what I discovered in my own life? Here's what I've discovered. I've discovered, Keith, that vision and conviction will cause you or give you courage that you did not know you had. Vision and conviction will cause you to say things that you normally wouldn't say. Vision and conviction will cause you to make asks that you wouldn't normally ask. Let me give it to you again. Vision and conviction will give you courage that you did not possess. It will cause you to apply for things you know you ain't qualified for. I got a witness in here on that one. Somebody's driving something they ain't qualified for. So somebody's living in a place that they ain't really qualified for. Somebody got a job and a title and a position that they ain't really qualified for. But vision and conviction will give you the courage that you did not know you had. Can I give you what else I discovered? I discovered that passion is a necessary ingredient for success. I just blessed somebody right there. Passion is a necessary ingredient for success.
Preach.
And here's what it is. Passion, compassion, is a necessary ingredient in order for you to change anything for the good. If you're going to change anything for the good, compassion is necessary. If you're going to have success at anything, passion is a requirement. Vision. I'm trying to give it to you as plain as I could. Vision is a concern. Vision is a concern. Vision is fueled by a passion of not what is, but of what could be. Vision is a tension between what is and what you believe it should be. Vision is when you're wrestling with what things look like, but what you know things should look like. Vision is this tension between the status quo and what you believe the possibilities of a preferred future should look like. Vision. It is that tension. Can I ask you a question that's not in my notes? Can I ask you a question? What are you wrestling with? Can I ask you another question? What is it that you see? What is touching your heart? What are you feeling? What are you seeing that doesn't line up with your current reality? Nehemiah was serving in the royal court. 648 48 miles away from where he was raised. And he gets news that the remnant of Jews that remain in Judah are under distress. And the walls of Jerusalem have been torn down. And those walls were outfitted and fortified to secure their safety. And when he hears that, his passion kicks in. And he makes a request that could cost him his life. What kind of risk are you willing to take based on what you believe God has shown you? What kind of things are you willing to do based on what is settled in your spirit? Are you willing to fail forward based on what the reality that God has shown you? Nehemiah took a risk, and his risk saved an entire nation. What kind of risk would you take if you took that risk? It would change the game for your family.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
What kind of risk, if you took that risk, your family's life looks different forever?
Amen.
What kind of risk? My mother at 60-something years old, she's 83, at 60-something years old, she took a risk to reconnect with God, and it has changed my life.
Amen.
Because of her risk of disassociating and cutting ties with relationships that had her drinking and smoking cigarettes beyond just smoking regular cigarettes, just beyond smoking regularly. But chain smoking is an understatement. And when she made a decision, she didn't cast judgment. She said, I need to do this for my legacy.
Yes. Amen.
And her legacy has changed my life.
Amen.
Who knew that a weed smoking athlete whose career ended too early will end up in ministry? But somebody had a vision that touched their heart, and it fueled them to change, and it's impacted my life and the life of my family. What is it that you're seeing? And what are you willing to do about it? Vision is fueled by a passion of not what is, but of what could be. Can I give you this? I want to give you 3 things that I believe vision does. Matter of fact, let me just give you this. Can I just give you my point now? Yeah. Can I get it out of the way? Vision. Vision is risky, but it's worth it. That's good for me right there, Sister Michelle. I pat myself on the back for that one. Vision is risky, but it's worth it. Look at your neighbor and say, vision is risky, but it's worth it. Vision isn't safe. It isn't comfortable. It isn't cozy. It's not neatly packaged. It doesn't come assembled. When you make a decision, Minister Mace, based on what you thought God showed you, based on what you thought you heard, based on what you thought you felt, you put yourself in a position for public humiliation, public embarrassment, public ridicule, public loss, the loss of relationships. You put yourself in a position to be exposed when you decide to act on what you thought you saw, what you thought you heard, and what you thought you felt. When you act on a vision, you are positioning yourself to perhaps kill some relationships that you have. You perhaps cut off the possibility of going places that you used to go. When you start acting on what you see and what you hear and what you feel, the game changes forever.
Amen.
And I want to suggest to somebody this morning, I don't know how old Nehemiah was. Many of these young men, they took them when they were young, strong and vibrant and full of life, and they searched their intelligence and they made sure that they could play the role that they played. So I don't know how old Nehemiah was. And perhaps the text didn't tell us that on purpose. Because perhaps There's something that God is still showing you, and you're past 50. And perhaps you think you're too old to step out and engage on what it is you see, you hear, and you feel. Maybe you feel like you're too young for really the God to be giving you that. I want to caution you that your vision is not contingent upon your age. The question is, are you willing to make yourself available to what God has shown you? And if you're willing to do that, look at your neighbor and say, he can use you. If you're willing to do that, God can and God will use you. Steve Harvey said that the moment that you ask God for something, the moment that he shows it to you, he sends it immediately. But he never gives you the date when the package is going to be delivered. You just got to be ready when it comes. And so the question is, what have you asked God for? What has God shown you? And what are you doing in the interim until the present and the package gets there? Are you laboring as if night is about to fall? Or are you chilling because you think it's going to be light all day? Nehemiah didn't know how much time he had. So he made the request out of expediency and out of urgency. See, your vision has to be urgent. You don't have time to play with your vision. You don't have the luxury of chilling on your vision. When you see it, you got to act. When you feel it, you got to ask God how to move on it. Your vision, it is risky. It is dangerous. It is costly. Jesus asked us the question, Sister Sandy, can you count up the cost? Have you counted up the cost? Anytime you step out to do what you believe God is calling you to, bruh, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. Time, money,
Preach.
energy, reputation.
Amen.
It's going to cost you something when you say yes to the vision. I don't know what happened to Nehemiah, but I know what happened to the wall. I don't know how long Nehemiah lived, but I know the wall was rebuilt. I don't know what role Nehemiah played in the completion of the wall, but I know it was finished. There's some things that God is calling you to do that ain't for you. There's some things that God has your name attached to, but is much bigger than you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plan that I have for you. Not to harm or to hurt you, but to give you a hope and the future. And that scripture wasn't for the Jeremiah. That scripture was for 300 and something years later for his generations to come. He told Jeremiah what was going to happen 300 years later. So you may have something, but it may not necessarily be for you. Question is, if you find out it's not for you, are you still willing to move on? That's the question. Are you willing to do that? Vision will cost you something. Jesus understood this. Jesus knew this. Jesus made a move knowing that it could cost him his life. Jesus acted on what he saw knowing that he only had 33 years. Jesus is the greatest example of what happens when you act on what you see, you hear, and you feel. If you ever want to know what it looks like to change a circumstance, to change a situation, to change a generation, to change a nation, and not get the benefits of experience what you change, look at Jesus. Lives around the world have been changed because of Jesus. Generations have been changed because of Jesus. And he wasn't here to experience it or witness it. Are you willing to act on your vision even if it costs you your life? That is the question. Can I say to you this morning, we are in this place because of what the Lord showed me. We're in this place because of what I heard the Lord say. We are in this place because I felt something in my heart. There was not a whole lot that lined up with us making a transition and a move. We didn't know how, when, or where, but something was given to me, and I decided to act on it.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
When you act, you won't get questions. When you act, you might get called out. When you act, folk gonna look at you funny. When you act, folk gonna call you to the table. But when you know that you know that you know that you know, you're willing to take the darts and arrows that come your way.
Amen.
Those who are considered lunatics typically are redeemed later on in history.
Amen. Amen.
When you're moving in that direction that God has called you, very rarely are you understood. Typically, it's after the fact, after they've assessed your life, that they found out how brilliant, how on point you really were. So if you're living your life right now to please and to satisfy somebody who may be looking at you misunderstood, you're wasting precious time that God has given you.
Amen. Amen.
Because at the end of the day, when stuff, and we went in church, I say, when stuff hit the fan,
Yes.
them same folks who were looking at you, when it all go down, they ain't going to be around anyway.
That's right. That's right. Come on.
Preach it now.
So you're basing your vision on what other folks thought.
All right.
You're curtailing your passion on how people are going to think about you. No. You feel it, you see it, you hear it, you act.
Yes. Amen.
And you let them catch up.
Yes.
You take little steps every day, and you look up, and you've taken a long walk.
Amen.
You just got to keep moving.
Amen.
You just got to keep walking. You got to keep stepping. At some point, they'll catch up, or either they'll fall off. But you got to keep walking. You got to keep moving. You got to keep doing what the Lord has asked you to do.
Amen.
Vision is risky business, but it is worth it. Won't y'all come back with us on next week? On next week, we're going to build on this concept and this idea of vision, and we're going to look at how you build it. Because John Donne said, no man is an island unto himself. Every man is a part of the continent, a piece of the man.
Amen.
And so if you're going to build something, you're going to build it with other people.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And when we look at chapter 3 of next week, we'll discover that Nehemiah didn't build it by himself. But he had a plan. And next week, we're going to look at that plan on how we build together.
Amen.
So on next week, can I ask you, for those folks who ain't here, let them know, be here next week. And when they come, tell them to bring some Timbs, some sneakers, some work boots, t-shirt, baseball cap if they want. We're going to do some work next week. We're going to do some work next week. We're going to talk about what it's like to build together.
Amen. Amen.
And then we're going to spend about 30 minutes after we finish putting that into practice here at 6 Stony Hill. Y'all with me?
Amen.
Y'all with me? Join us. I believe that God gets glory when we operate collectively. When we do things together, I believe that the Lord is honored in that. It's the model that he put in place for all of us. The Bible opens up in Genesis 1 and he said, let us make man. It wasn't a solo act. We can get into the theological conversation of the Godhead and personalities and what all of that means, but he communicated in plural terms. And so we learned from the very beginning, from the inception of the world, that cooperation is necessary for growth and change. And in 6 days, they created all there is. And on the 7th day, they should. And so let's come next week ready to work and worship. Look at somebody and say, work, and worship.
And worship.
Amen. Come on, give the Lord a hand clap of praise this morning. I want to do something this morning. I want us to do something collectively. I want us to pray. I want to spend just a few moments praying this morning for our immigrant brothers and sisters. If you've been following the news, you know that your president made a statement. I said your president intentionally. Your president has put in a mission